We are live.
Okay, we are live. This is Senate Finance. And I'm looking for my agenda that was just handed to me. That's the news.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So today, we talked about the DFR fees. Okay. Okay, we've got two bills that I'd like to get out today, or at least get ready to get out. You have a pretty cool agenda, and so, first we have Kirby, Kirby drafted the DFR needs. I think there's been some adjustments that needs to come up and tell the committee what's been adjusted. I'm gonna wait for any vote. Until after we have DFR coming in. Everybody has been at a conference and travel the last couple of days, so this is our first chance to hear from them. We're waiting to do that. Okay,
Will be today or they're not back yet?
they are back. So we have Kevin Gaffney, the director committee.
Madam Chair, I've reached two.
Thank you. I have one at 4:30, but we should be done. Forget you on screen for me.
I know. Trying to fix that as quick as I can. Good afternoon, Kirby Key Legislative Council. I have a summary chart for this, for Senate Finance Amendment for H 546, which is a miscellaneous tax bill. I can show the amendment itself on the screen, or I can show the summary.
What would you like to see? Words connect the numbers, right? So I think if you can see the fee and the number. it's something-
Okay, in that case, I'll share the amendment as the numbers. Okay. Let me know if you want me to go over anything we've covered before. The first 12 sections are not changed.
Oh, you've got the whole bill
This is-
split up.
This is, yeah, it's a strike all
Okay.
amendment, so we have the entire bill. And till page 8, it's a shorter bill.
Well, why don't you, walk us through just to
Okay,
refresh
sure.
us if we're gonna, just what is in each section.
Okay,
We'll be able to have some. See if there's any questions.
so section 1 on page 1 identifies the correct funding source for the per parcel fee that PBR pay to municipalities for reappraisals. That fee comes from the general fund, not the education fund, so that's a
Okay,
correction in the
that's
statute.
current practice, right?
Yes.
This is just a technicality.
Yes,
So we aren't gonna get the appropriation committee. I'm surprised.
correct, it's no change. On pages 1 and 2, this is the section, letting PBR waive the right to appeal when a hearing officer or court changes, property value. Under current law, PBR has to keep appealing that until they can't anymore, or they adjust the grand list. This allows the PBR director to accept the value, as correct and not continue to litigate.
Okay, yeah, right now they have to go all the way to the Supreme Court before.
Yeah, the way it's written.
Appeals, and
Mhm.
this gives the director the ability to say,
We don't wanna fight this battle, it's not worth it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna cost us more, so.
Section 3 and 4 on page 3 is the annual link up to federal income taxes. Section 5 on page 4 expands the number of people who can access the renter credits to you recall, the amount appropriated for the rental credit has always exceeded what was needed by the department. So the department recommended that you increase the income limits so that more people can receive a rental credit for the same amount of money that's been appropriated. Section 6 and 7 on pages 4 and 6 repeals the $15 fee for property tax credit claims that were filed after April 15. Section 8 on pages 6 and 7 clarifies that the director of PER may require values for utility property values to be used on the grand list, and that values for property used for transmission and distribution of electricity must have PDR's values.
This is the one we had at least two districts concerned about, but, director's policy evaluation and review said she's been to all the listers, I think they're monthly meetings, but every one of them they had, so if they have any communications, it shouldn't be a surprise. It is a change, but towns that do value it have to hire an outside appraiser.
Are we all that supportive of the change? I'm just wondering, one of the little sort of loose ends popped up that there are forms that they attest to their evaluation. Did it need to be changed in order to accommodate that in the value of the state?
But the TBR said if there's something out, right now, we're attesting to the value that their hired lister has provided. It's
Yes. So it should accommodate
should
the state value.
yeah.
Section 9 on page 7 is the property tax exemption for county property, set up like the property tax exemption that exists for municipal property. Section 10 is extending the sunset for the fuel tax to 2029. That's a 5-year extension, which is what's been done in the past for the fuel tax. Sections 11 and 12 on page 8 extend the sunset for the health IT fund. This extension is for only 1 year. We are aware that there's another bill, I'm not remembering which one, it has an extension for 2 years, I believe, is still out there. If we wanted to reconcile those, now could be a chance, or it could be done later. Of course, like you can't pass it over. I mean, but it needs to be.
Yeah, it'll be the last one passed or the first one, it's a standard.
I guess we technically do the second one. Would supersede.
Okay. So unless, yeah,
Or we could correct it and remove all doubt.
what other bill was it in? May 9.
H721.
Page 721 has the.
Currently in Senate, I'm sorry, restructuring districts currently in Senate Health and Welfare.
Well, if that comes here, I think it's.
So, okay, so the miscellaneous tax bill has a 1-year extension. And then we have some new parts for this amendment. So starting with sections 13 and 14.
These are the studies, right?
No, those are gone.
Studies are.
I'll get to, yeah, previously sections 13 and 14 were the studies. There was
Okay.
a study for municipal revenue sharing, and there was a study for wealth tax commission.
Yeah.
Those have been removed.
Okay.
With this
New
committee.
Number 13.
It's a new 13 and a new 14. These sections exclude ATVs from the sales tax definition for a casual sale. And then there's some conforming changes too. Basically what this does is it, under current law, something like a snowmobile is taxed by, is subject to sales tax, whether it's sold new or used, and whether it's sold by a dealership used, or if it's sold by an individual used. But ATVs don't have the same treatment under current law. they're currently under the casual sale exemption, so. The difference being that for an ATV right now, if it's an individual selling it. A used ATV of their own, then sales tax isn't paid for that transaction.
But it is not.
It is for snowmobiles and it is for a number of other. Types of vessels and motorboats. Vessel and boat.
I assume when we catch that, when they register it,
This is the, even though it's sales tax, this is something the DMV collects and they have a process in place for.
okay, so
Collecting
it's
it for
not
say
putting a
snowmobiles.
burden on. With fire,
I don't believe it's going to be any extra burden or doing anything differently.
well, I'm just thinking of individual buyers and having to sell, but if it's
But that-
collected when you register the vehicle.
Correct.
That you're not going to have buyers having to know that they're supposed to do this and collect it. Okay,
That's correct. It's not, sales tax will not be collected. Say, you're selling an ATV at a yard sale, there's not going to be any responsibility for the buyer and seller to exchange tax at that point. The tax is paid when it's registered with the.
okay, so this gives equity to things that are driven in snow and things that are driven in dirt.
And that's the change. We also had to conform with that. ATVs are also added to, this section on, getting credit for tax paid, within 3 months after, either selling one of these and changing it in, or also in the case of insurance. Like what happens now, let's say like your car, the tax you pay gets, you can get refunded if the car is destroyed. So, the parts of the law that have to do with that stuff is also being updated to include the ATVs.
Okay, so this has to do with if my ATV gets destroyed and I get a tax rebate, I see where if I get the second half of the year, my insurance, but sales tax was one time rebate, so,
So yeah, this happens if you purchase a new one within 3 months.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
for purposes of the tax on the new vehicle or vessel. If you would pay the lesser of the sales price. Tax on the sales price of the first vehicle or vessel, or the average book value at the time of the sale of the first vehicle or vessel. And then same thing, or similar thing, if you receive a payment for insurance. Then sales tax is
so if I buy a new snowmobile and 2 months earlier, I had bought a used snowmobile.
So,
it's for
No,
sold
No, I bought it, so I owe sales tax. I buy a second one. If if both vehicles are registered, why do I get a rebate, or do I have to?
yeah, I apologize, I'm butchering this, I haven't looked at it in a while.
Okay,
So I'm gonna start over and give you a clearer explanation, okay? And so this happens under current law for things like, well, snowmobiles, it's like, so if you sell your snowmobile. And then within 3 months, if you buy a new one. Then you can exclude. From the taxes on the new one. The sale price of the first one. Or the average book value of the first one.
okay,
And that's something that's allowed for other things, since ATVs are being treated more in line with those other things for sales tax purposes. This
we're
is
just
one
treating
change.
ATVs like snowmobiles. If
Yeah.
nobody asks any questions, I'm in good shape, and if not, we'll get a recess and I'll go ask
like
you.
automobiles.
Yeah.
Since for automobiles.
It is the same.
I've never bought a new automobile within 2 months. Well, no, I buy one, I trade one in,
When you sell your automobile,
yeah,
you get it to the value of the automobile, the sales tax, the sales and use tax that you paid when you purchased that automobile, it hasn't all been used. And you get the remains of the use to apply to the next automobile that you buy. That different.
I can see how that went in. I don't get the remains of the use if I buy a new dress that I owe sales tax. Or anything else.
When you
but
buy a
basically-
used car, you have
Yeah.
to pay sales and use tax.
Okay, yeah,
Madam This, Christopher again, this is often referred to, I know Senator Chittenden is familiar with this from the Transportation Committee, but this is often talked about as the trade-in allowance in terms of the
That I
purchase and
have
use
heard of.
tax. So it's analogous to that, where if you're trading in, if you're buying a $30,000 car and you have a $15,000 trade-in to apply to it, you owe purchase and use tax on the 15,000 increment, you know, not
okay,
less the trade-in. That way you're not double taxed on a depreciating asset.
Thank you,
that helps.
thank you to everyone.
You
We're not a tax guy, now we're right on it.
Any questions?
Not a fan.
You're doing
This is
great.
the trade-in law.
So,
Okay. I'm gonna
so that-
present this, so I.
That same treatment happens when you lose your vehicle or you lose your snowmobile or ATV, in this case ATV,
Okay,
to a flood. Same allowance.
lost the line, okay,
And so that's what these changes are about.
all right.
And that's it.
years.
This is just such a simple little 3-word.
So that's the treatment of ATVs, and then so the next sections are also new. This is not new, this is the fee for vital event certificates and having that fee waived for individuals experiencing homelessness or leaving a foster home or residential care facility. This was something that was included recently in this tax bill, because it was originally in the budget, but it was tagged as a fee, so.
Is this part of the tax department's addition?
No, this happened in the House because the House clerk identified it as a fee that was more appropriate for a bill like this than for the budget.
Okay, but the tax department isn't proposing this.
Tax department's not proposing this, this was
This
a
is,
different proposal. I'm not sure the word people.
Okay, but it's a House amendment.
And after that fee, which was in there before when it came over from the House, this amendment is adding some increases to fees. The first fee, and just like I'm not a car guy, I'm also not an insurance or securities guy, so I'm afraid but I think that Ted can give you further
And
explanation. or
these are
perhaps
the
you already have.
DFR fees.
These are the DFR fees.
Okay.
The first fee, as I understand it, is for initial and annual insurance producer appointment fees for insurance producers acting as agents for foreign insurers.
Foreign insurance is New Hampshire and alien is Canada. I always have to get those straight. So this is, and producer is a salesperson. So somebody in Vermont is a producer for an alien insurance company that is located, and it's a foreign insurance company located in Massachusetts. That's who we're raising the registration fee on. It's insurance sales personnel.
I would defer to Ted for any of the further details. This is my looking at the statute. How the statute explains it. And so these are fees for appointments, which I understand these insurance producers receive an appointment in different lines of insurance, life insurance, et cetera.
It's a fee to allow them to be regulated by the.
And so section 1718, these are notice filings for securities that are paid to DFR. And 19 is a registration fee for agents of security brokers and issuers. And I can go through the amounts that they're increased, or you can just
Okay, and we
see
could
that.
have Ted, we've got a
Okay.
summary sheet and walk us through that.
That's it for the committee amendment. The changes are the parts relating to ATVs and the fees. And another change is removal of the 2 studies from the house.
I'm feeling relief. This is the most undecorated miscellaneous tax bill I think we've ever sent out of here. Usually, there's at least 5 pages of side by side, so that may be reflective of the times and the lack of money. But this is really,
You do have a summary chart on your committee page. That's 1 page.
was a piece.
No, but it's one that I had produced
Okay.
for all the sections, summarizing.
That's, any questions for? Ted, can you just, there's been a few weeks to the numbers, so you can come up and just go over those.
For the record, Ted Barnett, Joint Fiscal Office. I'm gonna put this on full screen mode and try and make it as legible as possible. I presented a version of this table yesterday. Madam Chair, I don't know if you want me to go through this full table again or just point out the differences.
Just show the differences.
Sure. So the main difference is we received information from DFR that insurance appointment fees, which are paid by carriers based on their line of insurance, that in order to make a change to these fees, it takes 90 days for the change to wind through their database and get programmed and for folks to actually pay the new fee amount. So in order to generate the 17.1 to $2 million, this fee, instead of being $75, is $80. And so what this means is in fiscal year 25, this change would generate about $5.9 million in the first year. And then with a full year of implementation, without the 90-day implementation lag, it would raise about almost $7.9 million. So that was starting fiscal year 26 and in future years. The approximate number of filings has also decreased slightly. From what I understand, the number of filings changes year to year depending on the line of insurance that's getting renewed and registered. And so this represents DFR recommended using a revenue amount. And so this is the fiscal year 23. So that filing number is backed out from actual fiscal year 23 revenues, and that's conservative compared to what we saw from fiscal year 22. One other final change I wanted to note is the number of broker-dealer agents. We were relying on older data. We received updated information. This was 116,000 when I was here yesterday. So this is the line at the very bottom. Information from DFR suggests this number is closer to 140,000. Application renewals, change of registrations for broker-dealer agents on securities. And so all in total, yesterday the number was 17.186, and now it is $17.2 million in additional revenue in fiscal year 25.
Any questions?
Great.
I'm looking at the back,
Yes.
where it says that it makes all these. These increases make all the Vermont fees the highest in the country, so that's like, I'm just processing sort of what that.
Sure. And so, yes, for going back to our conversation yesterday, for insurance appointments, these are paid by non-resident or foreign insurers, not dealing insurance, foreign insurance. So these would be insurance agents or carriers in New Hampshire or Oklahoma or Texas who are doing business in Vermont. The consideration with the adjustment is $80 would bring us to when it was 75, that would match Massachusetts for the highest fee amount And so 80 would be $5 more than Massachusetts. And so this would
Right.
affect Vermont insurers because they have to pay they have to pay based on our rate in all the states that do business because of retaliation. So
I mean, right. Okay, so the biggest concern I have right now. And I might not be understanding this, is I'm hearing of two areas or more in the insurance industry where they are dropping a lot of small states and small businesses in Vermont. So the motels are very worried about their insurance right now. And liquor liability insurance is getting impossible or extremely expensive. There are these certain types of insurance that don't impact that.
that's a good.
I know we can just say like, oh, they're foreign insurers, but like, people have a lot of insurance from foreign insurers.
We have a couple of insurance companies that are domiciled in Vermont.
Right.
Most of the large
Yeah,
insurers are foreign.
and they have no obligation to insure Vermont customers, and that is starting to happen.
Yeah, and I would ask, as for how it would apply to different specific lines of insurance,
Mhm.
property casualty versus other types of liability insurance.
Yeah.
Which property casualty includes a lot of liability insurance,
Mhm.
DFR is coming in, and I think that's a great question for them to speak to how it would affect regulated
Okay,
entities.
so it could affect a lot of types of insurance. That's what you're saying.
I think you're seeing insurance usually gets dropped because of risk, not because of fee. If with California, we had a
Mhm.
lot of fires, you can't get fire insurance, they stop writing.
Mhm.
Nobody will write insurance on the coast of Florida.
Mhm.
Florida's trying to do its own. It's
Right.
because of the risk potential.
Mhm.
We had to trade our dram law.
That didn't work.
Yeah, so we
Really,
have
they're
an
still
issue
getting
with our
$90,000
dram law,
charges.
but it's not the insurance, it's the risk. It's the risk. So anyway, if you, well, you can try to fix the dram law, but most of it, you're gonna find any kind of flood insurance more expensive
Right.
now than it was a year ago. Because we had more flood.
Yeah, even if we cut it in half, it could be, $40 for insurance. Mindful of what we're doing, and this feels like one of the teamwork things, etc.
Certainly team, but I just like, I'm very worried about our insurance coverage in the state right now,
We will
Jill.
ask DFR about that, if we are losing lines of insurance, it probably be, we should find that out. You should ask them, I assume it's still in effect when they did the strict liability. To keep us informed in changes in the market, I believe that was vetoed, so that we did with the strict liability. Chemical spills or.
What do these 400,000 insurance appointments trigger? Is it when a new policy comes online every year, a renewal, if an entity is insured in Vermont? Like what triggers these insurance appointment fees?
This is a good and technical question for DFR. I understand that it is based on the type of lines they have and their offerings within the specific lines, and so to be able to offer a certain product, yeah, exactly. They're gonna have to pay a specific appointment fee for that, but
Surety bonds. Okay, we will ask DFR those questions. And we've got a little ways to go before we get to them. We are actually ahead of the schedule. Is there any question in any other part of this bill that you have questions about? I think what we've got left, other than the fees and TV sales tax, what we have left is the tax department's bill. We haven't added that those two things, the bills that came from the tax. So, I don't think there's much of a. Yeah. Okay, okay, thank you. We don't have any favor unless he's frequently here early. Going back. Again, the 657. Got two witnesses there, basically, well, I'm gonna, give PUC a chance to comment. It's, I think, somewhere in there, they,
Have your two P M here, what that's worth.
I have,
The person on that,
Oh.
yeah, Rob White is here.
is Rob White, okay, Rob, come on up. And
Did
this
we
is-
only have hit 6:57 on for 5 minutes?
That's just.
Greg Faber.
No, that's just Greg Faber. And we'll give it as long as you want it.
Oh, I see, okay,
657, we did yesterday.
right.
I think most of the day I'm asking Maria to come back early next week. So she walked through the entire huge. I'd like to come back and we'll do a section by section so that it'll be easier to get our heads around. But there's also a major change in the right of way. And we thought we'd let you talk to us about that,
I appreciate that.
or is yours.
For the record, Robert White, Agency of Transportation, Project Delivery Bureau Director. So our, this bill has a lot of sections in it, and the section that we're really concerned with is 26A, I believe it is.
It's hard to hear with this buzzing back here.
Got it?
I don't know if you can hear it, but we haven't, our work call has not been answered yet.
Mhm.
We have kind of a high pitch. Take. So we're doing 27,
Section 13A.
13A, okay.
Yep.
I already have notes.
Yeah, section 13A, that's the determination of rent to be charged for leasing and license of state-owned property under the agency's jurisdiction. Our major concern with this section is the cost benefit of actually implementing it the way it is. We haven't been asked formally to do any estimates, but we have roughly pulled together some numbers of what this would actually cost to stand up and manage, as well as what the revenue would be coming in. And it is very rough, it's hard to nail down, but basically, if we were to charge the perfect value that are in here, the three-tier approach in the law, in the bill, sorry. It appears like the revenue would be right around $1 million a year. And that is very conservative. Once we start pulling away some of the exemptions that are in the bill, as well as a lot of the right of way that is not used for telecommunication, we believe that number drops drastically and is probably, and again, this is sort of back of the napkin estimating, is probably closer to $500,000 or $600,000 annually. So there's some bookends there. The cost to stand it up is probably getting close to $500,000 to stand it up and get prepared to manage this in the future. And of course, that would drop down once we have it stood up fully. The agency has done a lot of work on this front, not only for electric projects, distribution projects, telecommunication, both wired and wireless communication, and we have a lot of the framework established already. One of the other concerns with the bill as written is it pretty much negates all the work that we've done so far. This shows a three-tiered approach based on county population. Our that we have sort of sitting in the wings is a two-tier approach that is town-based. We have determined market values for the state. The main reason we haven't really put this in place is we are concerned about passing any of those costs on to ratepayers. It's the main issue for us, but the big issue with this bill as written is the cost benefit of it being put in place.
Okay, and can you share in some form the details of your plan? So we can compare it to this?
Absolutely. Like I said, we've done a lot of work with energy transmission lines, that there's about 3 projects that are being proposed for Vermont. We have, and I want to point out, I mentioned towers or wireless service. There is a new piece in the bill as well, in that same section that talks about a charge for, I think it's small cell towers. At least the amount that's noted in there is much less than we have been charging other cell towers in this state. So we do charge cell towers. We don't have a lot of them currently, but we do have
Some
some.
hours that are in your right of way?
Yeah, for example, at the Williston Rest Area, there is an antenna in the cupola of the rest area. That specific one is quite a bit more than what is proposed as a minimum charge.
It's the Wi-Fi. Okay.
Hey, Rob, always good to see you on this topic. So a question yesterday, there was testimony, I want to say, Mr. Mackey, suggested that maybe the PUC might better handle the inventorying of this equipment rather than V-Trans. I know the money by federal law would have to go to the transportation fund to pay for the maintenance in the right of way. But do you see a better fit, or a different department to handle this if this were to go forward than the agency of transportation?
Yeah, great question. I don't really know. I know from our perspective, we know we have a lot of stuff in the right of way, but we don't track it such that we know every provider and what type of line and necessarily what they're doing. Yeah, and I'll just say, when you get down to a per foot cost, it makes it even more complicated, right? Because now you've got to determine the actual length and what happens when there's discrepancies, you know, is that the length from it going, you know, just the aerial length? Is it the length as it goes up a pole and goes from being aerial to underground? There's a lot of questions there to be asked, but I'm not sure if they could handle that information or determine that better than necessarily we
I
could.
think one of the questions we have in this paper in 10 minutes is, it was also suggested that they probably have an inventory. I think we did call financial management, didn't get an answer, they have one, but some of someone has got their might be duplicated, so you'll ask them if they know how those are. And I'm pretty sure they don't, it's just trying to get fiber out. They have to have people go out into the woods and find the folks.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's, I don't know if it's been confusing or not, but this is both aerial and below ground telecommunication lines.
Okay, so
And so for me personally, I can think of a project, I believe it was in Route 12 in Bethel, you know, where we went out, there was an underground telecommunication line there. We were trying to find out where it was for a project going through. And it was very difficult within plus or minus 3 feet either side of where that line actually was. And so, and I think I mentioned this before in other testimony, we have a lot of situations where lines get close to the right of way and may actually even be out of the right of way, we're not sure, and then come back in. So, you know, knowing where they are, the length of them, who owns them, it does get a little complicated.
Second to last question. So I get that it's kind of a wash when we do the math out. It might cost as much that we might take in. But is there an ancillary benefit to knowing where all these things are from a resiliency and disaster recovery planning perspective? Like, should we know what everything that's using our right of ways if some major natural disaster happens? Forget that.
Absolutely, the accuracy of that, I don't know whether there's any real benefit to, you know, certain types of accuracy. I will say, we have been working with all the utility companies that are within our right of way and trying to nail down better where those lines are. And quite honestly, it was just 10 years ago that we did a project of our own to determine exactly where our right of way lines were. Prior to that, we didn't know where a lot of them were because they came over to us from towns in the 1931 legislation after the flood of 27. And a lot of that language is still the original 1800s written description
Sounds
of
like that might be a summer project.
of those limits. Well, like I said, 10 or so years ago, we did map all of our right of ways, so we finally nailed that down. And we have since then been working with other utility companies to try to better understand where exactly all this infrastructure is.
Because yeah, you may know who owns the pole, but who's hung on that pole is a different thing. And there could be multiple things. And this, okay.
I definitely agree, there's a benefit with resiliency and stuff to know where this stuff is.
That, yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's a curiosity question. That mean the original documents you got for stuff like from the very large maple tree. The sea. Oh, there's old fashioned mapping. You will say, go from the large maple tree to the corner and then you go
I have one of those in Massachusetts.
here to there,
Yeah.
and you turn at the big rock.
Yeah.
Yes, that is what it is, and a lot of what the mapping tried to do was line up what the towns had for tax mapping as well as where we thought the right of way was. And there is a statute in place for when we can't recreate that right of way, there is a process for determining where it should be. But yes, a lot of those old 1800 surveys are still the original surveys that we use to determine where that right of way line is.
You're not necessarily accurate. We've had a zoning that was supposed to go along Route 2, only the crayon went up a little bit. And the neighbor at the top had a business in the backyard, it was a shared driveway, the neighbor in front wasn't happy with the doing that. But he was within his zoning rights because the crayons on a flat map. And it pulled in that garage. I mean, yeah, and that's, he took a pencil or a crayon and marked it. Topography can make a big difference.
I had a neighbor once who used to take an iron pipe, maybe IPS iron pipe,
Yes.
standing. He would occasionally move the iron pipe. So over decades, his property was sort of getting a little bigger. It's moves.
Unfortunately, someone will have that inspected, what they cost. They frequently find neighbor's fences are 3 inches, 4 inches, so forth on it. Especially when it's the big rock, which side of the big rock it belongs to. Second,
Where Green Mountain Power's been in, natural resources about putting more of their wires underground for reasons of, whatever, because I think it makes sense.
yeah.
How are, and those, where those wires go underground, is a easement that they purchased?
Not in the highway right of way, it's not. In the highway right of way, we allow some use of the right of way by public utility companies for free. Because they're considered an allowed use under federal guidelines. So the feds allow us to let them in that right of way because we have sort of a similar linear corridor use without paying, but it doesn't restrict the fact that we could charge them for any use of the highway right of way. We are working closely with GMP on those projects because of just what we're talking about. We really want to understand where this infrastructure is in our right of way, and at least for electricity and aerial utilities, we generally push them to the outer limit of the right of way. You know, our systems are getting bigger and more used. We have more users, bike, head, those types of uses, so we tend to push utilities out. That specific project is starting to pull utilities in closer where they really want to be, where it's easier to get to. So we're trying to work with them to make sure that it's a win-win for both of us.
I think they've talked to us on our streets. No one's talked about having to get an easement, so I assume when they're running along the edge of my lawn next to the street, they're in the running way. It came to a halt when 3 foot by 3 foot steel boxes had to be put in someone's front yard. And that, the transmission was much more obvious that it was running through the backyard and stuff. And I know they're working on it.
Are the boxes, are the underground electric wires, personal or business or personal property that's subject to being taxed?
Yes.
That's,
I don't know the answer to that. I believe they are.
so do you represent the transportation department, and you're saying that they're not sure where things are, but they think they're generally along these roadways and they're underground?
Yeah, generally they know sort of where they are, but you know, just like us, the surveying standards have come a long way since a lot of these lines have been put in, and I'm not sure they really track them. I think back to the town I used to live in the gentleman who sort of knew where all the water lines were, and he was the only one, right? I mean, a lot of that's the way it was. I think,
Yeah.
you know,
So-
in today's day and age, when we're putting lines in the ground or doing whatever we're doing.
So
it's
as the
much more
custodians of these things that you're unsure of their location, what is the transportation department doing now to verify where they are and what's down there?
We either try to use DigSafe to start, that helps us get close, but if we're really concerned about what might be underground specifically, we do a subsurface investigation for those utilities, and it can actually go down. You dig test pits to find exactly where the infrastructure is, and you map it out from that point.
Well, if, we're talking about taxation of these items, and
They're taxed.
we're the witnesses from the custodian of these items, and they're not really sure where they are.
Well,
At this time?
they know that there is a line down there. They are saying within the 3-foot radius. They,
Got one in my neighborhood that they drove in metal, like fence posts
yeah,
with yellow signs saying there's a telephone line there, it's what Montreal to Boston. So as the tax committee, how do we learn what's down there so we can make decisions? Do we direct someone to conduct an inventory, or what do we do?
I think we will ask the utilities. I think then we will ask the PUC how they know how many lines we're taxing, and the state's going to be appraising them. Right now, the town's tax them, so to some knowledge, I don't think that utilities are up digging up a trench along a highway and no one catches them. I don't think they
Well, they did that openly in the law board.
in towns, well, know that that line is there and they'll tax it right now. We can ask, there's a concern. We know from stringing fiber that not all of the smaller utilities know exactly where their poles are or exactly what's on it. Mountain Power has invested in it.
Sounds like Saigon in 1969, where all the telephone wire was stretched after dark, so no one knew who was hooked up to whom.
I don't think that's right, but it would make a nice mystery. I've always thought of our water supply being within 50 feet of the interstate.
Isn't it, do we have a obligation, responsibility, or should we be exercising some initiative to have a record created of where this stuff is, or that we're delegating someone else to do that?
I think first we need to know that there's a problem. And I would suggest we start with PUC. This does call for an inventory of things, poles, wires, transmission in the public right of way. I don't know if there's things, well, we found out with the old telephone lines, that many of them did not have owner permission, that the right of ways were non-existent. Because that's the 1930s when we were stringing them.
Or site in the 60s.
Yeah, that's the way it went.
So Madam Chair, I mean, so the bill contemplates as I understand it, asking the utilities and companies to share that inventory of infrastructure, so that can be the basis for a better cost analysis. And then I was looking at, the auditor wrote a memo. Do we all have the memo?
No.
Oh, okay, so I'm in on
And
my,
that's on the present situation where we are not charging.
yes,
This new bill
right,
will mandate how much gets charged, and then it gets charged.
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, offsetting good is being eliminated.
I think I think you said something like, make sure we understand the problem we're solving, et cetera. I found this memo very instructive to say, you know, I mean, there's a particular paragraph I like, I could read it, I don't know, but, you know, maybe we could get a response from you. Yeah, why don't we wait till we do that?
And we will.
But I think it's very instructive on why this bill is before us.
So what the questions that, the questions we ask, what is there out there? Where is it? Who owns it?
Well, first, we're going to find out if we already know that,
Doesn't sound like we do.
Okay, so we,
okay?
do we know what's there? Do we know who owns it?
Yes,
And if not,
well, if I put a phone line under my backyard, I don't know if it's any of your business.
until it leaves your yard and goes to the next yard, in
That's
which
right.
case it's the next person's business.
Well, and I think even the auditor makes the point, if I understand correctly, I mean, phone lines have a universal service fee. Cable and broadband providers don't, could take the place of kind of a universal service fee. You may not know exactly what's under somebody's lawn, but they are currently not assessed a fee. We put in statute over a decade ago to do the same thing that we do for
We
other
have some
infrastructure.
limits on what we can do with cable, they are federally created to a lot.
But we did pass statute that we have not implemented.
We found that one was a little. So we'll look into that. Okay, do we have any more questions for Rob? Thank you for filling in when we got ahead. Greg Baker is here.
Still did.
Our,
No.
I guess it is Friday, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon. We just wanted any comments you've had on 657, and then the issue has come up. We're doing an inventory. One of the witnesses suggested that PUC may actually know where the poles and lines are in this state. So we thought we'd ask you if you know where and now we're into, do you know where the underline is?
Excuse me, I haven't. So I don't need to. I'll just go over. So for the record, I'm very clear with the PUC. We don't have any comment on 657. It's mostly has to do with the BUSF,
Yeah.
and that is administered by the department these days. So we leave that to them. As far as the distribution lines, poles and wires, we have no central database of that. And I checked around a little, and nobody else does either. I mean, each utility knows pretty much where the poles and wires are, although it changes every day, possibly, depending on what territory you're in. And then if you're looking to attach to it, like CUDs attaching, that might be the question. I'm not exactly sure who
No,
prompted this.
this is the fees for being a utility in the public right of way.
Mhm.
And so I think Bill is anticipating getting an inventory of what's in the right of way then the bigger question came up is,
Do you know?
do we know?
Oof. Yeah,
Where all the poles and wires are, and I think we don't.
no.
And
You'd have to go utility by utility and ask them to show you exactly what they have in public right of way. As you know, they're all, the distribution lines are all over the place. We don't even approve distribution lines. That goes through Act 50 once they get to a certain length. But yeah, they're all over.
okay,
Are the utilities obliged to cooperate if you go in and ask them what's there?
if who asked them?
It's a good question.
Well, I did witness it, we would have to go ask them. Someone would have to do this.
I assume if you have them come in and testify, they could give you a good idea of what poles and wires are in, or what percentage of their distribution lines are in public right of ways.
Yeah, I think this is just a bigger question. Can we require them to tell us where the poles and lines are?
I don't see why not. You might run into some confidential, I mean, this is critical infrastructure, so there might be some problems there. But I don't see why you could not ask them to testify in that. They could give you general,
Yeah.
not specific stuff, not a specific map, but they could certainly give you percentages, things like that, I would imagine.
Can't tax on specific, I mean, general.
Right, if you're taxing them on a specific right of ways, they're gonna obviously have to do an inventory of exactly what they, how many miles they have in that public right of way. I guess it's per mile or.
I'm not sure, we haven't gotten to that section yet.
Yeah,
It doesn't whether any way not to tax them in relation. But the other question we are going to be taxing all utility in this bill, all utility business property as real property. But we do know, the towns know, because the towns tax poles and wires. So we do have a
you do.
pretty good basic math, because we've been taxing them forever. I think that that tax started in the 40s, I think we heard the other day,
Okay.
so.
Is it above ground stuff or above ground?
I can assure you, I believe there's underground cable running down State Van and the city of Montpelier, I can assure you, is taxing. It's pretty hard to sneak in with underground utility, not have the town catch them. Not something I want to spend committed time chasing down. You are welcome to hike all the roads.
So I was gonna say, it was Jeremy Crandall from CTIA, his testimony posted on our website references both the PUC as well as the DPS, that they suggest the department as well as the Public Utility Commission. The commission already has locational and equipment-based information. Those agencies should be able to compile the information using EPUC without imposing a new entirely separate regulatory process of wireless carriers. So they're just suggesting E-Trans might not be the entity to even consider this. But you don't have a reaction for that.
No, that's incorrect. And I've contacted the department as well. They were scratching their heads as well. And there is some information on wireless. The department did an inventory of wireless signal strength in the state. That's completely different. That's not what you're after.
Yeah,
But as far as, like I said, we don't even approve distribution lines.
right.
That goes through Act 250. So how we would ever find that in EPUC, that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Do you think this is good information to have a central database around?
If you're gonna tax, yeah, you're gonna have to know that information, I would think, right?
Isn't it good if someone also knows where our critical infrastructure?
Well, each utility knows where their infrastructure is.
Okay, but
So-
government doesn't know.
Not that I know of, and I checked around, I didn't.
And so
find
you don't
it.
have like an opinion on whether or not we should.
I mean, you could have that, but you gotta be careful with confidentiality. Because this is critical infrastructure, you don't want everyone to know that information necessarily, bad actors.
Right.
So you gotta be careful, but
But maybe like Vermont Emergency Management or something.
exactly that kind of agency. However, you gotta keep in mind it changes daily. People move wires around, people move poles, new houses go in, solar panels go in, so you're running wires down through the woods. So it's constantly changing, but yeah, I don't see.
Like an annual update or something, I don't know.
Right,
It's like,
But I think that's beyond the scope of this bill. This one,
it tries to get,
it's telling AOT to get their inventory finished of poles in the right of way. And then to tax them or charge them a fee, and there's no out now, there's a substantial public benefit that can be offset the fee. I guess it has to date. This takes any, it's a hard tax. But we're getting into, we now tax and we're putting in a miscellaneous tax bill that the state will be doing the appraisal, the value of all the poles and wires. Because that's not the trading. They hired a utility appraiser and they'll do it. This changes other tax structures. Right now, all the computers and we tax the towers, the towns do. Their real property, they get taxed. Done things with solar panels, so you can only tax the value of the ground underneath. But they're taxed, so the towns know where they are, and maybe somebody sneaking in an underground wire that nobody knows about in East Overshoe. But having talked to those listers the other day, I'm pretty sure they know where every wire their town is.
Above
Above and below. I mean, you've got to dig a pretty big trench to sink these things and fill it with gravel and it's,
Some places are.
they may be. In my case, they were gonna have to dig up 4 driveways. So, and repatch them and poke the patches hole. But it's hot, I'm not worried that we have a lot of underground utility construction that we don't know about. The towns have been taxing it. This bill proposes to tax what, if they are taxed, because not all towns tax business property, but the towns like Montpelier that do will now have to tax that this business property as real property or real estate. And I was concerned about the listener's ability to figure that out. But I believe the bill says that the state will do it. So I'm going to ask property valuation if they feel capable of doing that. And I'm not sure it will make some money for the ed fund because it is a property tax and therefore it wasn't a lot. I thought it was something like 600,000.
I thought they wanted it to go somewhere.
It's sales tax. Right now, it's business property. It doesn't go to the ed. But if it's real property and taxed under the property tax, then the additional money will go to the ed fund.
I thought the goal of the bill is for it to go to broadband in rural areas.
First section of the bill
Okay,
adjusts, goes to 2.4% in voice.
yeah,
And very little, I haven't heard you talk on your phone, but you've been
yeah.
typing on it. That's all
You
data.
can tax me on that.
You can't, we don't tax you on that.
We're fighting over gold before we dug it up,
Yeah,
so.
so.
That's fair.
I suppose we could, I don't know how we track data.
Does anybody know
This
in terms of the inventory that is being collected, the level of detail of that inventory? We talk about poles and wires, but we also talk really about communications equipment in general. But theoretically, if you have a pole or wire in the public right of way, you can see it, you can see what it is, but you don't know necessarily what's in the box, what it does, and how it's connected to everything else. But here with the inventory that's being talked about, you do have the ability of someone to put all that together. My question really is, do we know what, information security, data security, communication security, considerations have been done about the effect of this broader inventory and detail that we don't have right now? Ignorance sometimes is almost a protection.
Not a good way to govern though.
We don't
It
have
isn't,
to
but at the
worry
same
about it.
time,
We've
do we
accepted the state
know,
with us.
have we thought through, or has someone been
Yeah.
charged with thinking through what the security, information security implications are of the inventories? What should be public, what should not be? What we have
I
right
think
now.
it does
the
say they're not
municipalities collecting
subject
that
to
information.
public records. That it's not subject to public records is in the law, but what kind of security you have, I know when we're doing the privacy bill, we exempt the state. And we also know that there have been instances where private institutions like banks have refused to share information with the state because our security does not meet the requirements, the federal requirements they have. So we don't, as an organization.
Well, telecommunications is a major concern,
It
national security concern. It's also a concern for bad actors generally, and I would think that in the event we do anything like it, particularly in terms of further mandates regarding the collection of data and so on and so forth, we should be examining how that's protected and how that's secured to the extent that it needs to be. Somebody needs to look at that. And that should be added to any bill that we get out of here.
PUC gets a lot of data. Fault line. Do you have any privacy protection from the data that's collected over there?
Yes, we do. In individual cases, of course we do. We keep information confidential. Usually it's, you know, a legal request for confidential treatment of information and evidence. But I would suggest you get the utilities in here and ask them how much data they can give you. If they can't give you, I don't know, I would ask them. I mean, the pole owners, you need the pole owner because not all poles are owned by the same people. So
Right.
sometimes the telephone company owns it, sometimes it's a jointly owned pole, sometimes the utility company owns it. It's all very complicated. As far as what's on the poles, we do have pole attachment rules, you know, the PUC has those rules, so companies have to keep track of who's leasing that space and where it is, so that information should be, they have the information, will they share it with you? Again, you raise good questions, you should probably ask them.
And I think this is a very complicated bill. We'll keep working through it, with the time we have. It is, if the original goal was to get the universal service fee in line with the costs, that is, that 911 into the black. Section 1 would do that, and other than the fact that we might get families that they have 4 or 5 kids with separate lines, more than they're paying for voice. That's hasn't been controversial. So that one would achieve the main goal. I'm still not sure what we're doing with the rest of them.
Is the stuff that's in plain sight? Do we know, is that been, or
I think what we've heard so far is that the utilities know where their stuff is in plain sight. I'm pretty sure the towns that tax it know what's in plain sight, and I'm pretty sure they know what's not in plain sight. What we're trying to eke out of, and the utilities know what's out there. What we're trying to eke out is how much of that is in the public right of way, and then who owns it. Now, I haven't read the,
have to know what you can, stuff that's in plain sight is easier to answer the question that you brought up. Stuff that's buried is a little tougher.
I am quite sure that the towns and the utilities know what's buried and where it's buried.
How do we learn?
We can ask that, but I don't know that they're going to tell us.
I think this is an issue overall, this is a larger issue. And perhaps if we do go ahead with this, I think we should put some mechanism in there to at least take a top level look at the issue, how best to address it, because you have a whole bunch of people who know some of it, and we don't know who, if anyone, knows all of it. And we don't know who knows what, we don't know how it's protected, we don't know anything really. We think that the utilities are doing A, B, C, but we have utilities of all kinds here, some very sophisticated and some not very sophisticated. We have towns, we don't know, every town isn't doing it. We don't know if the people who are doing it know what's in the boxes, other than the utilities themselves that may constitute critical infrastructure.
And right now, I don't think they tax the boxes. It's holes in the line, so.
There's a lot of stuff that we don't know, and the issue is, there's some things we should know. And, you know, again, for lack of anything else, although I would like a better solution that doesn't, but we're not gonna spend any money on it yet till we know that we really have a problem with it. I would put a paragraph in there just charging, JITOC, Joint Information Technology Oversight Committee, to take a high level look at this and make some recommendations as to
That
how
might
to
be,
approach it.
that might be a good thing to do, because, yeah. Because why we're changing the whole tax structure, other than we're getting some money into the ed fund, not a whole lot. I think their goal is to make ALT tax credits. We can decide if we want to pay them or not. And when it gets to taxing computers as real property, I have some concerns about that.
There's many folks, but for concerns over stuff we don't know exists or where it might be. And
If we solve nothing else, I mean, I think it's important to have the auditor in because he's pointed out that we've had a law on the books for over a decade.
Right.
That is not, that we have not made any progress on following.
Well,
So are we trying to implement that law or get rid of it?
this bill takes out, my understanding is that there is an out, you can say it provides a greater common, public good than, and getting cable and phone, I can see where you might think that. This bill takes out any excuses, there's no exemptions, and it says we will charge this fee on a tiered system and do that. It takes all discretion away from AOT. AOT says they have a system, so I'm gonna ask them to bring that in, a two-tiered system. But I think the goal is to move that forward, and I think
Is that the goal? To move your two-tier system?
it's not his goal, it's the goal of the Ways and Means Committee.
what's
I
the
thought they meant-
utilities to make sure we don't know where it is or
I
where.
don't know, who says they have any goal?
We just, the subject of goals was brought up moments ago.
Yes,
Different people in this room probably have different goals.
well, we're trying to decide.
Our goals
what-
would depend
Yes,
on
we're going to have.
what we
two
know
bills,
exists or don't know exists.
one way or the other. Okay, but we're getting into the mud, we're beyond the weeds, we're digging. We can,
If not us, we get into the budget.
with this section, we can decide how far we wanna go in forcing AOT to do the inventory to be charged. To do the fee. That's, and if we decide that we wanna do that and take any discretion they may have away, then we can decide how we wanna do it. Okay,
I think you framed the question.
so now, we had Greg here to ask him, as it was suggested, if the PUC had an inventory and knew where the poles and wires all were. The answer is no. We haven't got any return from the agency and administration, so I assume they don't know where all the poles and wires are.
I called around, I didn't find anyone with a database. I thought maybe emergency management, but
I think
I
you
don't.
might get all 52 towns and put them together and you might find out where they are. I'm pretty sure the list is now. Second,
The same testimony references the Department of Public Service a lot as being the appropriate agency for this. Do you have any thoughts, if we should ask them or?
I asked them.
You did?
we're gonna ask
They
them.
don't, nobody does.
Yeah.
I
Like I
would just
said, we don't
say,
approve them.
yeah, I think I am concerned that there isn't a central place where this information is known, concerned enough to wanna have more conversation, and if it costs money to figure this out, then it makes sense to tax them so that we can get the money to at least understand the infrastructure that exists in our state.
We know what we, the limits of what we know, how better than we did.
Yeah,
Thank
we just said in public that we don't know where any of our
No, we
underground
don't,
infrastructure
We
is.
do not have a
I'm a little
centralized map.
concerned. It's just something.
These are private businesses. We don't know a lot about a lot of private businesses. Okay. Okay, so Kevin Gaffney is up there on the screen. I am missing Zane. Yeah, he's in. Okay, thank you, Kevin. I hope wherever all of you have been, you had a good time and learned a lot. We're looking at DFR fees that we're looking at to help balance the budget. I just wanted to give you, we've got the numbers crunched, but wanted to give you a chance to throw up any red flags, tell us anything we should know.
Sure. For the record, Kevin Gaffney, Commissioner, Department of Financial Regulation. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Committee. Yeah, I was trying to listen to most of the prior testimony, relevant testimony to these changes. I guess out the gate, just to be clear, typically these fee changes happen over time as the cost of administering these things goes up, and that's not what what we contemplate as the time to raise the fees for that reason. So just to be clear, there's not an operational reason to have fee increases. And I guess I'd like to answer any questions. I think I want to hit on some of the highlights of what I think I heard. First of all, it looks like if I just start at the top, that the appointment fees are now at 80, and maybe they were at 75 when we were kind of going back and forth, even as recent as yesterday. So I'm just assuming those numbers all just changed based on the additional $5. But I know, maybe before I get into the fees, I think it was Senator Ron Hinsdale just mentioned kind of more market conditions, insurance more broadly, and even you, Madam Chair, talked about companies exiting markets, and obviously conditions on the ground in markets like California and Florida and Texas are more dramatic, but obviously we do have market issues here. And I think one of you even referenced the liquor liability issues we encountered last session, and actually, resolved that well. I thought we made a statutory change to allow a strong level of protection, but also make sure we have a marketplace to serve Vermonters. So as, on an overall basis, you can, and I think even Senator Ron Hinsdale may have noted that these proposed fee changes would move many of our fees to the higher end, if not the highest, at least as we look at, regionally where our fees lie. So that's, I think that's something the committee, I think, has already recognized, but I just wanted to make that clear.
Making it clear, not just like, Commissioner, you're saying there is a reason to consider in the thinking of our equation that these fees being the highest in the country is what we've learned could cause a retraction in our insurance offerings overall?
You know, it's really a hard one to project, right? And we're in a different market condition. You know, I've only been commissioner not even 3 years, and the market's changed a lot since I was deputy to commissioner, and certainly the capacity and availability, and it's not just our local domestic insurers or the foreign insurers that you know you see advertised on TV. It's the insurance that they need to kind of stay solvent and deal with catastrophes, the reinsurance. So all of those pressures exist now. I can't forecast what fee changes would do in terms of a entity's participation. I know there's a lot of other types of legislation that's looking at a lot of different things, and DFR is always mindful of, you know, how do we keep our regulatory regime explainable, enforceable, and, you know, protect consumers. But one of the ways you protect consumers is making sure you have a marketplace, making sure they have choice, making sure that even in markets like liquor liability, there are some participants. There's not going to be as many. So I can't really project that. I can just say, you know, if someone's looking at or making business decisions, they're going to see where our fees are relative to other jurisdictions. So that's just, you know, that's just the facts. What that results in, I can't project, but I'm always mindful of not necessarily like companies leaving the market, but could it, you know, it's always hard to budget and project our appointments. They have really, since really over my tenure, they've probably increased, you know, at least twofold, you know, if not threefold, really, in my last 18 years. But that trend, you know, it's hard to know. Is that trend going to continue? Is there going to be mergers of companies that, you know, require less licensees or different, you know, technology? So it's really hard to project all of that. But all I know is, you know, as you raise the fees, there could be decisions made to just have less appointments, less licensees, and maybe I'll explain what an appointment is versus a licensee if you'd like, because they are different. You have a producer that's licensed to do business, and they're either a resident producer or they're a foreign non-resident. We actually call it non-resident in licensing. For insurers, we call it foreign, which would be, you know, the other states outside of Vermont. So they have a license, but then they have to write for particular companies. And so they may write for a particular company, but that company also has writing companies within their group, affiliated companies. So one independent agent down the street in Montpelier may represent 10 companies. And just for argument's sake, each of those companies, and it's not an exaggeration, some have more than 5 writing companies, each have 5 writing companies. So that one producer will have 50 appointments because I'll have 5 different companies, or do they do the math for 10 different companies and 5 writing companies each. So 50 appointments that they will have. So each of these fees is for that authority to write business for that particular company. So each producer has to have the authority to write for those companies. And these fees are assessed on all producers except our domestic producers. And some of the I guess the other discussion I think that Ledge Council was discussing was the implementation. And I did want to clarify. I think part of it I heard synced up with what I want to articulate with a 90-day time frame to implement a change in the producer fee. But that 90 days commences in the fall, because each fall we have to reassess all of our license fees, and appointment fees. And if there's any changes, because there's an impact on retaliatory fees, depending on what other jurisdictions charge. So we do all that in October for a 1/1 effective date. So the change in these appointment fees would really be 1/1, no earlier than 1/1/25. So when I heard 90 days, I wasn't sure if the calculations on this spreadsheet were reflecting a 1/1 or if they were reflecting 90 days after July. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I think that's helpful. I see pencils going. So for an appointment, I guess what we're trying to find out is one producer might decide he's only gonna sign with 4 companies rather than 5. But is that going to have any serious impact on the availability of any line of insurance in Vermont? I thought that was for the risk that stop lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Madam Chair, generally well, I can't speak, although I did work in industry, so I know what the thought process is, right? It's can you operate? Can you is it a market that has opportunity? And is it a market that the type of insurance that you want to write is available? And I would say from a risk standpoint, Vermont's, we certainly have had our share of even non-flood weather events, right? So we used to use this term that it was almost a non-climate state in terms of real climate risk, and that's not the case anymore. So the risk conditions are ever changing. I don't think this fee change would change that dynamic in terms of what the companies themselves pay this fee. It's billed every year, so we're about to prepare the appointment billings for a June due date. So at the very end of the fiscal year is when the bulk of these appointments revenue will be collected. There's also each month there's new appointments because people retire, people come on board, new people get licensed, and then there's new companies. So there's new appointments each month. They're not the lion's share, but these numbers in your spreadsheet contemplate both the June 1 renewals and the monthly new appointments. So for the monthly new appointments, if you were to change the fee January 1, 2025, you would start to collect those new appointments then, and then when the June renewal happens, due June 1, 2025, that revenue would come from the change in revenue plus the total revenue would come then.
Okay. Senator Chipman, did you have a question?
I'm still trying to understand what these insurance appointments are, the triggering events are, when they're paying it. Is it for individuals across the country and world that are selling insurance into the state, or is it every time somebody starts an insurance policy with like a Geico? I'm just trying to really figure out what these insurance appointments, these 400,000 a year are.
Okay.
Yeah. So you mentioned one company. There's a lot of those national companies, right? And Vermont, I think the marketplace, we've I think maintained a fairly competitive marketplace. So we have all those participants. So all those companies that write business, they're going to get if they want to do business in Vermont, they have to get licensed, and then each of those producers has to have the authority to write for each of the companies. So like when you talk about a particular company, they have 7 or 8 writing companies within their family of companies. So each producer has to have an appointment for each of those. They also have to have an appointment for the type of insurance they write. So there's property, casualty. So property and casualty, that's basically think of your auto, your home, your boat, your business owners. And then there's life and health, and then there's other smaller lines of insurance. So each of those lines of insurance, you know, when I was a producer, I was a life health PNC, so I had to have 4 different appointments. So that's how that works. So even though we only have a small amount of producers cited here, the writing companies in Vermont have hundreds of thousands, and as you said, almost 500,000 appointments, because again, like I said, one producer will have, you know, 5, 10, 20 times that many in appointments based on how many writing companies they represent.
Okay.
And I guess I would say the thing that that I would I think the committee should be hearing from our domestics, because the one thing I'm concerned about, even though we don't charge an appointment fee here for our domestic producers, there are appointment fees charged in other jurisdictions, and I'm not sure what exact impact this could have on you know, the cost of doing business more broadly as they operate in states outside of Vermont.
Okay, I think we have some testimony about retaliation and that our people would pay the same rate in their states. Jamie, did you have?
Sure, yeah, thanks a lot, agenda, thanks for squeezing me in. Jamie Fian, the Academic Property Casualty Insurance Association, APCA is a national trade association, both with 5,000 or so members, some of them are from licensed and writing insurance in Vermont. I do want to have state for the record our opposition to this fee increase. $80 places Vermont at the highest in the country. I can provide you with a chart that shows where the fees are around the country, but just a sampling of regional, for example, Rhode Island has no fee. Maine has a $30 fee, but it's biannual. New Hampshire has a $25 one-time fee, it's perpetual.
Are we looking at this?
I'm looking at line 1 on your.
No, I know, this says main charge is $70, but maybe I'm looking at the wrong.
I think that'd be a different fee.
This is under insurance plans, it says main charge is 70 in Massachusetts. Massachusetts or charges 75.
I had Massachusetts 75, maybe no.
Our current rate would be $72 in the average.
Chairman at Joint Fiscal Office, I'll have to double check that number.
Okay.
It's not my area of jurisdiction. I will make sure.
Yeah,
Yes. that
I mean, like Maine is more of a comparator to us than Southern New England, so I really wanna know that figure.
Okay.
Again, you have to come by New York, like I said, no fee. So 14 states don't charge fees, the majority of those that do are in the $10 to $25 range. So Senator Shinn, you're, sorry.
I'm talking quietly too.
But no, we've got this
Yeah.
buzzing behind us, so.
To your question, Senator Chittenden, you know, how do we get the 500,000 people, right? So say I'm one of these independent agents that Commissioner Gaffney was talking about, and I work for 10 companies. I'm going to be licensed and renewed for each of those 10 companies, for each of the companies within one of those companies that are writing insurance. So pick an auto insurance company. They may have 3 or 4 licensed companies writing business in Vermont. As an agent, I would renew my license for all 4 of those companies. If I represent 10 companies, just multiply everything that way. So that's how you get to 500,000. Because we don't have 500,000 agents in Vermont, right? So we have a substantially less number than that, but they register and license with the department each year. So at your renewal time, this fee will be paid then. That's how you get the total revenue generated there, which is substantial. I'll point out that this is on the heels of an adjustment a couple of years ago that doubled the fee at the time and injected $25 million into the insurance market. This is injecting another $8 billion into the market that is unlikely to be absorbed by companies. And we're all aware of some other bills that are floating around here as well on insurance companies and assessments for various training. There's also auto insurance, we looked at earlier, but it's likely going to have a sort of a premium reaction. These all add up, and again, $80 is far and above what other states are charging. The commissioner raised a very good point, and Because each state has this retaliatory tax regime, which in essence is trying to have, states, insurance state-based regulation. But states want to try to protect their own companies and make sure other states aren't doing something that kind of disadvantages their own companies. And the way to do that, to create the level playing field, are these so-called retaliatory taxes. So if this fee is subject to retaliatory tax, which it sounds like it is, all of Vermont companies are gonna have to pay the difference in the appointment fee that state charges based upon what Vermont charges appointments here. So if Rhode Island has no fee, the local companies here, if they're a business in Rhode Island, they're gonna have to pay the Vermont fee in all of those, for all of the producing.
And do we have evidence that's happening now with the $60?
Sure, absolutely. Every state will have an aggregate
Like a
retaliatory
standard.
taxes.
Okay,
I mean, there are multiple fees.
Yeah.
That will be subject to retaliatory tax.
we do that as a practice?
Yes,
Okay,
EFR.
Yeah.
Assesses the retaliatory fees
okay,
against other insurers based upon what
Okay.
those other states are charging Vermont companies.
yeah.
Okay. Senator Chin.
Are those companies mandated to pay these appointments for their brokers that, just because the Geico ones, I'm assuming Geico would be an operator here. If they want to do business in Vermont, they have to pay this insurance appointment for all of their agents, or can they carve out, and would they likely, if they continue to see this increase, a subset of those appointments?
I mean, you were talking earlier about market reactions to this, right? I mean, it's pricing into commodity. If you price too high, you cut back on what it is that you're buying. And that could absolutely be a scenario where perhaps they only appoint 5 rather than 10 agents to try to distribute their products. And does that create additional market issues?
Quick follow-up, are they currently mandated to appoint everybody that works at their insurance company?
No, I mean, you have to be a licensed producer, first of all, right? And then, but it's a very simple, there's a national database, I think the acronym is SERF, SERF, where when you're making these appointments, you just click on all 50 states for your licensed producers. And so
IPR.
this fee goes, every state's fee will then be validated.
Gaffney, did you have something to add?
Oh, just the National Insurance Producer Registry, NIPR.
Okay,
That's what Jamie's talking about.
okay.
Wrong acronym.
Any,
Sorry, yeah, so I just wanted to stick to the opposition to this for the reason stated.
okay, thank you. Now we'll mind the committee as balanced. We need to vote on the $16 million by today. If we can't do that, we'll have to come back in on Monday, and get the job done so that they can do it.
Can I ask the commissioner one question? And I meant to just bring this up before tomorrow. Cause is the captive insurance bill staying on second reading tomorrow?
I have not even seen the cabinet reviews.
I thought I saw that
It may
tomorrow.
have come back, I heard it was coming back.
It's, so it's on notice, but that means it's coming here now. It's just been referred here. Oh, then never mind. I was worried that I had to ask the question before. Yeah.
In the house.
Well, I could ask the commissioner a question about that now.
Okay,
So I understand, I mean, and it was House Commerce that made the change, so it was raised with me, even though the bill comes straight here. And is a jurisdiction of this committee, that there is a moratorium on cryptocurrency vending, ATMs. What however any of us feel about cryptocurrency, I wouldn't have a problem with that if there weren't a handful of existing ATMs that people may be using to access their own money, their own currency. And I wonder how DFR feels about the moratorium, and if we want to look at a moratorium that looks ahead instead of tells operating
I
ATMs they
think
can't
we'll
operate.
give the commissioner time to consult with his people.
Okay.
And we'll do that question
Okay,
when if that bill has come back, I was just told at noon that it was coming back. That we'll take that up, we'll take up the bill.
Yeah,
Okay.
happy to do that. There are
Okay.
more than a few here, I can tell you that. There's
Oh, okay.
Okay.
there's tens of, you know, there's 25 or so in throughout the state. So, but we can think on your question, but
Take a look at the amendment in the bill and then you can let us know. Probably Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how much cleanup today. Okay. Committee. I would like to get this insurance, get a sense of where we are with it, or where we wanna go. So, before we get off on other topics, I have the miscellaneous taxes on for both. Yeah, are under a time crunch, we'll have to come back on Monday if we don't finish it up, and we'll have to do some fast thinking.
Just so you know, I don't have a day ago, it's an actual schedule from 10 to 3 on Monday. So,
Okay, then maybe we can finish this.
I mean,
I prefer that. Anything.
I would prefer to, I have a VSAC meeting on Monday. But are we still good to go with the miscellaneous tax bill? Okay, then two. Then, okay, then we will go on to the next subject. Have Jill Remick to talk about 657. And Jill, Donna, the floor is yours. I think I read in here that when they change all what is now being called and taxed by some towns as business personal property, that you will praise it. Did I remember red flag yet? Otherwise, I've got to worry about how, I'm worried if you know how to turn computers into real estate, and if you're not doing it, and I've got to find where I leave those. If the listeners know to do that, and anything else you'd like to talk to us about.
Okay, my name's Jill Remick. I'm the Director of Property Valuation and Review at the Tax Department. Yeah, we could start there. Over the course of the last 24 hours since I was asked to come in, I admit this required a lot of cramming on a topic we haven't spent a lot of time on. It is unclear the way it's written right now, if it is impacting the municipality's ability to tax business personal property or not. I think that needs to be clear. There's a section of the bill that lists several things that would be considered communications property.
Yes.
And about halfway through that list, it sort of shifts into things that would normally be business personal property. So
Yes, that's.
for folks' awareness, there are currently 48 towns that do choose to tax like cable, for example, right now, meaning a majority of towns don't, but those that do, they are allowed to tax business personal property. It's a vote that the town takes. So it wasn't clear if this would put these communication property poles and wires and things similar to cable and electric now onto the grand list. That's pretty straightforward. That hopefully would mean that the municipalities would also be able to have them on their municipal grand list and tax them. But then when you go into those more specific things like routers and machinery and things like that, that's what towns typically have the ability to tax or not. So I think that needs to be decided and made clear in here which direction that's going.
Okay, I'm looking at section D under that list, and it says on the form May 1st of each year, the Division of Property Valuation and Review shall provide the listings in each municipality with evaluation of all taxable communications property and any communication service provider situated therein as reported by such provider. I'm assuming that now that we have said all their business property is to be taxed as real property, that you're going to have to make that transition for the town.
Right, so the, and that would, I think that's something that would take a larger discussion, 'cause section 11 like articulates what business personal property is, but then it specifically says except for communications property. So I think what that's trying to say is that only the business personal property of communications properties are being taxed this way, and the rest the town could still exempt, or that's not.
I think that's their intention,
Okay.
but I'm wondering, if you have the ability to appraise real estate, you have the ability taxes to provide this within each with a valuation of taxable communications property.
Right.
Now, that's just poles and wires, we're already doing that, we have the bill. But if that's saying that we are now saying what was formerly business property is now communications, let's see what we call it, taxable communications property, so it now is, doesn't just have the tower, it has, as one of the witnesses said, the little brick house next to it that has the computer and everything that makes the process run. Is that something that you feel you can do? Or,
So right now, the electric distribution is the poles and wires, that we've got, we in the towns have locked down. I think what this is trying to capture is those telecommunication things that have changed a lot since this language passed, right? So like fiber optics and, you know, for example, my cable is not cable, it's cable and my internet, so does it get treated like cable where it'd be exempt, or does it get treated as a telecom, right? So I think that's a good intention of this language, is to try to capture the
I think
telecom.
that's, okay, see, that's what I'm not reading. Because it comes right after the list of things that once, some of which once were business
Right.
property.
And our recommendation would be to stop that sentence at wireless towers. Right, so like, and I'm happy to send this in, so machinery is again something right now is business personal property that towns can choose to or not, we do report on the town's tax machinery on the, in the PBR annual report. Distribution hubs, splitters, equipment, routers, servers, that's a lot more in depth.
Right, okay, so you wanna just, the term is so wire, cable.
Right, because what's well written in here is that right above that is it's articulating the sort of definition of what would be added to the grand list would be tangible property that is fitted and attached to be part of the local communication network, as well as the facilities that are part of cable. So that's pretty clear. That's how they're sort of categorized, right? But then when you get into servers, routers, things like that, that's currently treated as business personal property, which is not the same thing. So to answer your initial question, sorry to be long-winded, so you would need that appropriation as in order to hire a contractor to do the telecom valuation.
Yeah.
But I don't think we or the towns would want to go down the route of taxing, and I don't think the towns that do tax business personal property would wanna lose that.
Okay, so you wanna stop it, on page 29, section C, you wanna stop it at the reference to 30 BSA?
Yeah, or you could say the term includes wires, cables, conduits, pipes, antennas, poles, and wireless towers.
And wireless
As
towers,
the,
okay.
the definition about it being fitted and attached as part of the network or a facility. That's clear to us, and to, like, when this bill first came up a couple months ago, we did talk to like some utility appraisers, and that's how we got the estimate of how much it would cost, and that's. And there's a good article from, is it the National Council for State Legislatures that I just found that kind of goes through how different states treat these.
Can you share that?
Yeah, because I found that really helpful and kind of
Yeah,
getting ready for
if
this.
you can share that, and they can get into the community. That may be helpful working through all of that.
Those were the pieces I wanted to make sure that I covered, but I'm happy to try and answer any other questions.
No, I think it was that whole reappraisal of what was being asked of you and asked of the towns. And now, I think the thought was that since it was now being real, secret real property, there will be a gain to the ed fund in that town.
Right.
The town budget, if they're taxing with this business property now and then, they're gonna tax it at real estate. I suppose it could go any way, depending on what that tax rate is.
Right.
Okay. Any questions for Jill? Okay, I think we just have to scratch out 2.5 lines. Oops.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for
Keep an eye on it.
Will do.
This is a massive bill. I think, yeah. You get into trouble.
Their information.
Yeah.
It's pretty here to me, or they're in here Monday.
Okay.
For our natural resources, if there's any traffic that needs to be done.
I'm pretty hopeful that we're gonna be out of here today. We're actually ahead of schedule. I have 2 bills, that I would like to vote out.
Madam Chair, I think Barbara Neal was another witness for the same.
Yes, she was. I apologize. Barb, come on in. Are you with us? I knew it was too good to be true.
Sorry, yes, I am with you.
We are giving you a chance to talk, anything you would like to say about 657. I believe most of your things that affect you are in section 1, and at this point, that's probably the least controversial section of the bill. Or probably, it's just because we understand it. But the floor is yours.
Okay, well, for the record, I'm Barbara Neal, Executive Director of the 911 Board. And I just want to confirm my understanding of what it is you are looking for from me today. Is that really a recap maybe of the impacts of the revenue shortfalls in the existing VUS structure over the past several years? And is that what you're interested in knowing?
I think that is, to me, it was the prevailing reason for this bill, or the prime. Other things seem to have been attached, but straightening up the universal service fund so that it met the needs. It is legislated to, services is legislated to provide, and you are probably the largest.
Okay, all right, good. Well, that was my understanding and that's what I prepared for. So in the past, well, since fiscal year 21, the shortfalls in the Vermont Universal Service Fund have resulted in multiple general fund transfers to keep us afloat, essentially, to provide the full amount of the budget need. So in fiscal year 21, there was a $1.8 million transfer from the general fund, which essentially covered a deficit that year and into FY22. Then in FY23, there was another $1.3 million general fund transfer. In the current fiscal year, there was a $2.1 million transfer, and I should note that that included $815,000 in like a one-time expense that will be related to system refresh over the next couple of years. But that was included in the current year's general fund transfer. And then in this year's budget request, the governor has included a request for another $1.3 million general fund transfer. I think I said this year, I mean FY25. So over the years, it has created a situation where we were not fully funded by the Vermont Universal Service Fund. Fortunately, that was cured right through these general fund transfers, but I think it would provide some level of comfort for everyone to have that reliable, sustainable revenue source for the program.
Okay, and I think the general fund could use the $1.8 million these days. Okay. Any questions for Barbara? No. Okay. So, Barb, I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Committee.
Senator Pershling is texting me about the miscellaneous tax bill and wood boilers, the same extension we did last year. Is that anything we wanted to try to tag on the miscellaneous tax bill we're about to vote on, the extension of the wood boilers tax exemption? If not, you could bring a floor amendment and just read.
We haven't taken any testimony. I
have another curveball to propose.
okay.
So, I might have missed, I probably missed when the revenue sharing study was taken out with municipalities. I honestly don't like studies. We have passed multiple times a universal local option tax. I think if any year towns need this option on the table, ones that are very busy with other things, it's this year, and I think we should send back to them the universal local option tax.
Second.
Yeah, we could do that. It would be a study, and we've got something drafted.
I have a bill number from maybe even this year.
Have you got a drafter?
This year,
Should draft.
well, they might be gone. I don't know.
Passed it last year, so we still not get this by any of.
So is it Kirby?
It's fine. Sponsor.
Which Tucker might have drafted it. Would be my, yeah, Tucker drafted it, it's not here. And Kirby, yeah.
That's 60. That's 60.
That's 60. Can you send that to? I need to get at least 6 copies. Where should it get sent? Or can you find S60?
It's active this way.
So, well, yeah, I can find the bill, what do you want?
I need a copy for the members of this committee.
Okay.
We passed it.
Yes.
Yeah, we have passed it more than
Unanimous.
once. Yeah,
Reminders one.
Like to vote for bringing.
Yes, okay.
Do a bill about the vote.
Yeah.
On this point, Representative Sims did reach out to me last night about that study, and that first thing I said, my response was, well, keep offering communities to be able to pass this local options taxes to generate revenue without having to come back to the legislature.
Yeah, a study doesn't help anybody.
No. We can study it, but if we don't have the money to do it. Yeah. We don't have the staff to do it right now. Okay, so
Do you want me to email Kirby about this?
Kirby, what?
I'm currently printing it and waiting on the printer.
Oh, we're waiting, on that printer, okay, we can print 6 copies there?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, then we are waiting for the printer. I'm not letting you out of the room.
Were you leaving the room? Okay.
I'm not letting you, it was a universal.
Oh,
deal.
okay.
No one leaves. We've got 2 bills. Actually, why don't we do 868, which is a transportation bill? Both at the 2 fees, 89 and the 44. They're really, we're moving along, we're planning this starting since we're ready, so.
So I just want to inform the committee of 2 things related to this. We did hear about a possible amendment this morning that led to some discussions about the fee and Senate transportation. That translated to something that right now, just to move this along, we're gonna make 2 changes, and Jane also serves on transportation, Senator Kitchell serves on transportation, and they are just as happy to do it appropriations. They're gonna propose to rename the fee to not be a road usage fee, because it's really dedicated to electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So that way, when people pay it, when they register their battery electric vehicle or the plug-in hybrid, it will say electric vehicle charging infrastructure registration surcharge or fee. So if this committee really wants to be the ones to do that amendment, we could, otherwise, they were just gonna tag it.
That amendment belongs to the transportation. As long as you are touching fees, just rename them. If you go forward and approve it.
No plan on slide.
Okay, to move this, I need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Senator McCormick has moved that we approve the 868 as sent to us by the Committee on Transportation. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. I'm hearing that is 700. Okay, so, perfect. Are you doing the other bill?
Yes.
Okay, so you might as well do our amendment while you're at it. All right, now we have,
We have no mention, we're just passing it favorably, right?
yes, yeah, we have not amended. Just approved it as presented to us. And, oh, these are political.
4 pages.
4 pages.
Right now.
Thank you. Okay, would you like me to read it to you? Section 1 does local option.
Oh, it's the bill, oh, you have the other piece of it about like,
No, because here,
Transparency
no,
of
because
South
we
Burlington.
removed.
oh,
Okay, all the confidentiality of tax record. That's all been removed, so we only have section 1, which is disclosed municipal law. Yes, now, first section is statement of purpose, so proposed authorized any municipality to adopt it. The Commissioner of Taxes will disclose the municipality's local option tax status to the town manager or legislative body of that municipality. And that's the other way. That's all local option taxes. We strike out a lot of stuff. Local option tax shall be effective beginning the next tax quarter following 90 days. Check out a lot of stuff. If the legislative body of the municipality by a majority vote recommends the voters of the municipality may in an annual special meeting warned for the purpose by majority vote of those present voting assess a 1% sales tax or 1% alcohol beverage tax. Or a 1% tax.
does section 2%, section 2 and 3 are effective dates that aren't. Right,
That's the new section 2.
yeah,
So we're going to be amending this, so the effective date. The effective date would be what, July 1st?
July 1st, 2024.
Yeah.
And we don't need section 2?
Yeah, we struck it.
Well, there's a little italic section 2,
Yeah, no, that's
we don't need that.
authorizing municipality to assess any local option tax that's been approved by the vote.
That was the Grand Isle public.
Right.
Yes,
So we don't need it,
Yeah.
okay,
we fixed Grand Isle.
we just need to say 2024.
Okay, and we need to change the date to 2024. Okay,
This is the change here, and it can come through the last
the tax,
previous.
I don't know.
We have to go up in past finance.
It was-
Interested in anything. Go out.
It was Senator Chittenden and Senator Rob Hinsdale, and I believe it came directly here.
It is in our jurisdiction,
Water tower,
refer to the
this
committee on
is
finance,
permissive.
yeah. We can talk about it later.
Nobody has to do it, it's just says it does not
Exactly.
have to come to legislature to get.
And it is the position of the Senate, this biennium, we
Yeah.
I think unanimously endorse this, so
Yeah.
adding this language is.
I don't think it's.
Now you have to this.
Okay. So we have a motion to amend the bill. I'm gonna need a draft. Because we're gonna have to get a final, see if Kirby can come down. Tell them we're looking at S6.
He cannot, we tried to schedule him for right now, yesterday, and we were told he can't come. So we made time at 1 to be here. I mean,
Going to do a floor amendment?
No, I'd really get it
Yeah.
done, but we're gonna have to get it in draft form. See if ask Jen, who's in charge?
I believe it's,
Is it Jen? Ask Jen, tell her we need somebody to draft an amendment that is S60 with a date change. I just need it in the correct form, since last Friday afternoon, I know got rejected because we didn't put it in the right form, section X. Yeah, we had one year, the Canadian conference under the miscellaneous tax bill, we had a new tax factor. It was literally after they had that you came to an agreement. He drafted it all that night, brought it up the next day, and overhead it did the entries for the correct drafting for. So they left the new leaf all alone. It was a correct drafting form, it just wasn't the one that we used. No, she can't do it. Let's find somebody. It's not that hard, it's putting this into that form. I really don't wanna let you go.
So Madam Chair,
Yes,
apologies. We're dealing with S60.
no, we're dealing with, yes, we are amending H546
With the text of.
with the tech, but we will have this,
Unique feature.
we will have this put into it.
Thank you.
form.
I think I'm back on track.
Okay, you don't have to do anything yet until we get a official number.
On that point, I think we have a draft strike all from Kirby that he presented earlier to H546, or are we asking to just have him change our strike all amendment to include the
And
S60
yes,
language?
that would work.
That would be after.
Or we could just amend, we will just amend it because we can't get Kirby. So whoever we get, we put S60 in the correct form. I hope.
Do you want me to go knock on office doors? It's emailing Jen.
It's not working.
It may work, but it's a risk.
Chris, email Chris.
Control always.
I know, you find some more money.
Come on, there's gotta be a lawyer in this building.
I'm gonna troll the hallways.
Control the hallway, see if you can find it.
Anybody.
See if they're all sitting in rows. Waits and means. Oh,
Even though we are-
no, he's got something else he does on Fridays. Can't get him, so that's true, but I can hurry.
I didn't write it, it was due.
Yeah. No,
Oh, so that's not.
no, we just finished with today. Oh, it's me. Is it rain? The sun was out. Oh, it's pouring. The sun was out for about 30 seconds a little while ago. But it is downpouring
You
right now.
didn't tax.
Oh, you think I should tax the sun
It only comes after tax.
for 30 seconds? Okay, I'll work on that. We would have made much money with you on this sun. We've been sitting around here. I can find a way to tax the rain, so when it runs off or something.
Very cognizant of that case.
That's right. Oh, waiting is Friday after, yeah. I don't we are waiting, find a way. Anyone can build. Welcome to stand up.
There has to be one in a process.
There has to be. We have one ready to go.
I've got Senator Shinton's signatures.
Okay, Bill, and we need the transportation going for that. And we need an attorney, because we need a draft.
Chris Reed.
Chris, no, this is not an attorney.
Ben is looking for micro gradient.
We just need someone to draft an amendment to find. We have decided, since we aren't doing the study, that we are going to put S60, which is the you can do a local option tax without getting our commission bill. We have voted it out of this committee at least 3 times. And we just need somebody that can put it in the correct form.
That person would be Mr. Keaton, and I will go find him upstairs.
Okay, I don't know, I think he may,
He's in ways to be.
there's some ways.
He is in Ways and Means, but I'm not allowed to touch words, I'm not an attorney.
Okay, I know.
Like when he's free, if not right now, we could always
I
bring.
think there's somebody who has to do with this out.
Just a little guilt bill,
I
but
need.
Or if you see another attorney along the way.
I'll email Jen.
Any attorney.
then the election council said he was gonna go with micrograding things.
That's true, Mike.
I mean, it's basically just putting it up.
Before we get, is there anything else I just or we start worrying about?
Sure, you clean beverage tax.
That may come. Because we still, I see the property transfer license coming to us, over at us. When and how it's getting here, I don't know.
Oh, yes, it is, it is, like, being township for your final.
Think it's coming good,
I just don't know where it is or how it's getting to that.
that noise, is it coming from there?
Yes, but it's also coming out,
You're saying you go over.
it's probably the furnace which is over us. Yeah, why don't we go offline?
Okay.